All right, welcome back. We're getting ready to start our first hypothesis test today. We went over like the basics of hypothesis testing last class. As a quick reminder, the 5 easy steps of hypothesis testing. Step 1, identify your null and alternate hypothesis. Which are identified as H naught and HA. The null always has our parameter equal to a value. And HA as our parameter, it's either not equal to, it's greater than, or less than that same value. Let's see today. In 10.2, that parameter is P. Step 2. Identify alpha, the level of significance. If none are listed, use alpha equals 0.05. Step 3 and 4 depend on what we're starting to do today. Step 3 is find the test statistic and p-value. This is a StatCrunch step. Unless you like working with hard equations. I love math, but I don't love math enough to do this by hand. So you have to be a real fucking psychopath for math to want to do this by hand. Or we compare our p-value to alpha. This gives us 2 scenarios. If the p-value is less than alpha, i.e. the p-value is too low, reject the hoe. So we will reject H naught, support HA. Step B was the p-value is greater than or equal to alpha, or it's not too low. This leads us to the case of our knots. Do not reject H naught. Do not support HA. And as you'll see when we're writing our sentence, there is not enough evidence. Not, there's all sorts of knots. And finally, step 5, we will state a conclusion. Regarding HA. It is always about HA. There is either enough evidence or not enough to support the claim that, and then you wanna paraphrase or copy HA here in English or in a sentence format. Say at the alpha equals blank level of significance. Anyone need longer? Alright, so chapter 10. Is dealing with a single population. Ten point two, which we're doing today, we're looking at the proportion. P. 10.3 is on the mean X bar. Or mu. Then when we start chapter 11 is on 2 samples. Or 2 populations. This is when you're comparing different groups. So like, do more guys than girls watch baseball? I would probably say that's a yes, but I could be wrong. You never know. Doesn't have to be two different groups though, it could be the same group at different times, you could do like a before and after. Things like that. And then chapter 12 and 13 will be on. Three or more groups. So with 10.2. We are looking at a one population proportion test. For this one, we need to talk about what H naught and HA are. H naught and HA will always be P equals some value. And then P either doesn't equal, is less than, or greater than the same value. All other steps of our hypothesis test are as is, what we talked about before. The only one that changes. Could use these tests to do the hypothesis test. Or hypothesis testing. Unless otherwise stated. The groups need to be normally distributed. For a one population proportion test. Or what I like to call the 1P test. The criteria, we've talked about these criteria before. It needs either say it's normally distributed or. N times P times 1 minus P needs to be greater than or equal to 10. And N is less than or equal to 5% of the population. 0.05 times big N. Some of the questions will ask you, is this true? And one of them you have to just verify with calculator, and the other one kind of, I'll usually eyeball that it's less than 5%. But. That's how it is. And like we talked about during confidence intervals, we don't know the proportion of the entire population unless we survey them. But we will use the proportion for the sample. Sample proportion. Goes by p hat. And that will be what we use for our mean. And standard deviation. Stat crunch. Doing stats. Portion stats. One sample. They should ask you either A with data. This is where we have all the individual entries. Or it will ask with summary. And this is where we have a tally of the votes. Or answers. All right. You guys ready for our first example? This is not in a computer. We'll do some computer examples in a second. We're gonna use a computer to get the answers, but like this is, I'm gonna grab some homework questions in a second. But this was from right after the pandemic. In fall of 2021. As teachers. Believed. That less than 40% of students. Want to take. Math 21. As a face-to-face class. Versus taking it online kind of thing. And this is the results of who enrolled for what. So I'm gonna list the class. It was either Math 21 standalone or Math 21 with support. So Math 21 and then Math 21 321. F2F will be face to face. 135 students enrolled for that. 254 enrolled for support version face to face. And our online students. We had 550 for Math 21. And 241 for the support version. Totals, column for totals. This adds up to 685. This adds up to 495. We have 389 here. 791 here. And this adds up to 1,001. Now we gotta check our criteria. Which means we need to find P. So this question is talking about the students that want to take Math 21 face to face. So we are going to use the face to face column as our people that said yes. And that makes this column the people that didn't want it. Our p hat, remember when we do proportions, it's x over n. The people that are in favor of whatever it is or have the trait, which in this case is 389. And n is the total number of people, 1,108. Throw that in the calculator, you're gonna get 32966. And while I'm doing this, just in case we ever you need to find the standard deviation by hand. We'll walk through finding that real quick. Standard deviation by hand, if you recall, we had p times 1 minus p over n. This is the square root of 0.32966 times 1 minus 0.32966 all over n, which is 1,180. And if you take the square root, you're gonna get 0.013685. This is calculator steps. Okay, our criteria. We need n times p times 1 minus p to be greater than or equal to 10. In our problem, that is 1,180 times 0.32966 times 1 minus 0.32966. And I'm getting approximately 261 if I round it, which is definitely greater than 10. Greater than or equal to 10. So that criteria is met. And the criteria, second criteria is 5% of the population. Or less than 5% of the population. And I can guarantee 1,180 students. Is less than 5% of community college students. So that's for sure. So both criteria are met, we can start doing the hypothesis test. It's fired up, get Stackridge going. Okay, hypothesis test. Step one is to identify H naught and HA. In this case, H naught is P equals some value. It's gotta be a proportion or percentage. Now, our hypothesis, the teacher's hypothesis. Was that less than 40% of students wanted to do face to face. So if we think about the alternate hypothesis, we're saying the proportion is less than 40%. Sometimes starting with HA is the easier thing. We're saying the proportion of students that want to take face to face stats is less than 40%. And we can't use a percentage, so we have to write it as a decimal. That's the value that goes up here. Whatever we're comparing, whatever we're making our statement about, that's the value we're gonna use as the equality portion. That's step one, that's all there is to step one. Step two is identify alpha. Alpha was not stated in my problem. So I'm gonna use 0.05, which is the default alpha. Step three will be in StatCrunch. Here we stats, proportion stats. One sample. And I do not have everyone's individual response. I don't have like Tommy wanted face to face, Maria wanted online. I just have summarized data. I know how many said they wanted face to face. So we're gonna do with summary here. And they're gonna prompt us for our summary information. How many said yes or how many agreed? Out of how many total? This one is X is 389. This one is our N, which is 1,180. Ready? All right. All right, I got StatCrunch here. I'm gonna go stats, portion stats, one sample with summary. It's gonna look the same way as the confidence interval that we did earlier. Number of successes is our N. And that was, I have listed as 389, that was our X. We had 1,180. This is where we put in our P. Notice I can't edit this one right down here, there's no box here. But if I change this one to say 40, that one updates on its own. And then we will say less than. Always double check HA, the symbol in HA. If you make a mistake, chances are that's where you made a mistake. Believe it or not, that's the most common thing to overlook. With that, I'll click compute. I do want to point out that if you didn't want to do the calculation by hand and you needed to find the p hat, it's right there as a sample proportion. This is our test stat. Z stat is the test stat. So I'm gonna write down Z stat is negative 4.93. You don't need all the decimal places, just a couple. And it says my p-value is less than 0.0001. That's all we need from that. It's really easy to put this shit in and get the answer you want. Now we'll go back to paper and look at finishing the test. I'll come back to this in a second to show you more and talk about some more. So that was step 3. Step 4 is comparing. P-valued alpha. This is our decision making step. Decision time. So my p-value says less than 0.0001. 0.05 is our alpha. Is the p-value less than alpha or is it greater than alpha? Less. If it's lower than this and this is lower than this, p-value is less. So we are in the p-vals too low. Reject the hoe category. That will cause us to reject H naught. Support HA. And that's what our statement is about. Conclusions about HA and we want to support it. All right. So step 5, conclusion. Remember, it's about HA. It helps to go look at what the sends part was for HA. So I'll bring that back up and put it up here. In fall 2020, teachers believed that less than 40% of students wanted to take face-to-face class. That's what HA was about. The percentage was less than 40% for face-to-face. So our statement of conclusion is going to say there is enough evidence to support the claim that less than 40% of students want to take Math 21 face-to-face. Over online. At alpha equals 0.05 level of significance. This was fun because we were arguing with administration who wanted to go back to like 75% face to face. And we're like, students aren't enrolling that way. The online classes fill up, they don't wanna take face to face. And they wouldn't open up online classes and slowly, like the students, if you weren't given a choice. They slowly started enrolling face to face after they waited for online, they're like, see, students will take face to face. They don't want it, like students, a lot of students. Once you learned you could do it online, people that work full time and have kids, like going to driving to campuses of like. Time loss that some people can't afford. You really don't have the time, so there's like online, you can take online classes anywhere, and we lost students. But. That's what happens when you have. Administration versus staff. I did wanna point out something like, kinda like, what does the P value mean? And let's compare this kind of information to. Our confidence intervals, what we learned about confidence intervals. So what the hell is this P value? The P value shows you. The proportion of. Sample groups, if you did a bunch of them. That would have a value as extreme. Or more extreme. Than what you found. Or we found. So like, if I wrote our P hat in percentages. Our P hat was 0.32966. As a percentage, this is approximately 33%. If the actual percentage. Was 40%. From the null hypothesis. Then if we look at our P value, our P value. Was less than 0.0001. Which is 0.01%. Then less than 1%. Of sample groups. Would have a P hat. Less than 0.3296. Which is effectively. Further from. The null hypothesis. So if we had it on like a little table here. Like the null hypothesis was there. Ours was way over here at 33%. And if we did like, it's gotta do a normal distribution. If we did a normal distribution, there are very few out here. That doesn't look center. Less than 0.01%. Sometimes it's going the other way. Yeah. In this case, it would be lower. If we had a number, like if we ended up having like 47 or 48%, then it would be higher.
But then how does that like what you said, or support your like your estimate?
It means that ours is. Like, if this was the case. How do I put this? Very few samples. Are gonna be worse than ours, most are even higher. But. If it said like 15% or like 40%. Now, that's the same as this, say it said like 49%. If it was 49%. We'd be way over here. And we're like practically spot on. Like most of, we've almost nailed it. This is a little bit easier to see as a confidence interval. So let's take a look at the confidence interval thing. When we talked about the hypothesis test, if it was less than or greater than for the HA, this was a one-tailed test. And I had told you at the time that the confidence interval was 1 minus 2 times alpha times 100%. So in this case, 1 minus 2 times 0.05 times 100% equals 90%. We're gonna look at a confidence interval of 90% for the same data. Still writing, I don't wanna rush the gun on me. What?
What is P hat again? Sample?
P hat was the proportion we had that it said it. So our sample had 33% of the students wanted face to face. We had thought less than 40 and like 32% is a lot less than 40. The odds of getting something even lower are unlikely because we had a low P hat, but. Everyone ready? Okay. Let me. Doing proportion stats, one sample with summary. We had 389 and 1180. And we're gonna do a confidence interval of 90%. And we have a lower limit of 0.307. Let me write on the screen. A lower limit of 0.307. Which is 30.7%. And our upper limit. Was 0.352. Which is 35.2%. Now, if we're doing that table there, that like the line I had, we've got 30.7%. 35.2%. And H naught was 40%. our target region, our confidence interval is right here. This is our 90% CI. H naught is not in it. Since H naught is not in it. Get out, H naught. You're rejected. So it's the H naught, our target for the null hypothesis is not in the confidence interval, it's rejected.
So what does that mean in terms of like, so that means that you guys were like off in your prediction?
No, the 40% would be old, like. If like administration was off, they thought more students should take face to face. We said less, and we were a lot, it was a lot less than 40. Now, I have this up here, I had redone this. I wanted to show it to you, cause we had said 40%, I changed it to 35 to show you something. If I had said 35%, less than 35% of students wanting to take it. My p-value is this, 0.07. This would have been above alpha. Does that make sense? So I'll write that on paper in a second. I'm gonna talk about that one in a second. I did want to show you how this relates to the normal calculator. If we go to stats, calculators, normal. I'm gonna put in the mean and the standard deviation we calculated by hand. And that was a couple pages ago. And I'm gonna say, what was it, 0.32966? And this was 0.01136685. I'm gonna click on between because we're treating it like a confidence interval. And I'm gonna say 90% or 0.9. Let me clear that writing real quick. And now I can use my pen a little bit more. Notice we've got the 0.3072 here. If I rounded this to 4 decimal places. That matches that. And if I went with. This right here and compared to the upper limit to 4 decimal places. These two match. So the lower limit and upper limit are pulled from using the normal calculator. When you're doing the confidence intervals, it's actually doing all the normal calculator work for you. And 40% is way the fuck outside of it. Notice 35%, what I said here. 35% here is not. 35% is just barely inside. It's like right there. So 35% would be just inside. So by the confidence interval reasoning. We wouldn't reject we wouldn't reject 35%. Don't reject 35%. And going by the p-value reason, the p-value is 0.05 which is greater than 0.05, which was alpha. So this was also do not reject. That makes sense? Okay, back to the paper. Let me clear all that writing. Annotate off. So during the confidence interval, this is what I have on the screen. We had a lower limit of 0.307, thank you. And an upper limit of 0.352, was it? H naught, which was P equals 0.40, is outside our limits. Or outside the CI. Therefore, we reject it. What?
Did they fix it? Because you said that.
No, they had, well, let's go look. I'll show you. So these are the number of face-to-face classes. These are face-to-face classes. These are online classes. So rather than face-to-face classes being less than 40%. Administration has it where online classes are less than 40%. You'll notice that some of these have already filled, like this one's already filled up. This one's close to fill, registration's only gone on a week. Couple of these are close to filling up. Oh wow, we actually have a face-to-face at school. She is the most liked teacher in mathematics on campus. I couldn't tell you why, I've never taken her as a student myself. She's either phenomenal or easy, that's usually what that means. Hopefully it's phenomenal. Back to. Okay, so that's kind of like how the confidence interval compares to our p-value. That's kind of like what we're looking at. Look. Let's take like a 5-minute break, 10-minute break, and then I'll hand out the project. And if you guys want to do more problems after that, or we can do more problems on Tuesday from this section, if it's still complicated, we can. Or we don't have to take a break and I can hand out the project now. Anyone want a break? Okay. I got it. That's that one. I'm gonna start talking about it while you're handing them out. Thank you. So the project, and this was in the announcement I sent this morning. You need to be in a team. You can be as small as 2 people. You can have 4 or 5 people. There's only like 20 people or so left in the class nowadays. But you want to do a team. Pick a topic that you and your teammates are interested in. So like talk to the people like who you think you're gonna work with. what are your hobbies, what are your interests, and you can get like an area you're both interested in. And then you can start thinking about different types of projects we can do. I've had, and I can help you with ideas once you know what area you wanna talk about. I've had students compare battery life from Duracell to. Like the generic brand. I've had them compare Bounty paper towels to generic Kirkland at Costco, like which one's stronger. They did this by making it wet and then putting pennies on it until it broke. And counting the number of pennies that it took to break it. I've had students that everyone on the team worked at Cold Stone Creamery. So they did who likes the bigger size, guys versus girls. And they just recorded who was in there. I've had students that are very antisocial and didn't wanna ask anyone shit, so they like. Counted the number of red cars in the parking lot at any given time and had a hypothesis of how many cars were red. What percentage was red? So like. Just think, like, talk to someone around you. Form a team. Find out what your interests are, and then like. If you're curious, you're wanting ideas, I can provide ideas in the area, or. You can come up with something on your own, a lot of times Christmas time, with it being Christmas time, Halloween and stuff like that. I've had students say, well, as head of household, do you spend more than $50 on Christmas gift? Or no, and what percentage of like people said yes? I've seen what was the average amount for Christmas gifts. How many people had turkey versus ham for Thanksgiving? Like holidays trigger people's ideas. I have seen on like mobile games on your phone, like in-game purchases. What percentage of people actually spend money on those versus what percentage play for free? And once you have like an area that you're kind of curious about, all you gotta do is be curious, and it's gotta be something you can like find out within a month by doing surveys. Or stuff like that. Just come up with an idea. Something like that, we could talk about, like, you wanna work on proportion, you wanna work on mean, something like that. Discuss. You'll get, the idea is, so I changed the order, we were gonna do the presentation before Thanksgiving. But like we are off like a week from when I really wanted to hand this out. So we're gonna do the presentation after Thanksgiving, give you more time. There are little due dates along the bottom. You'll see what you need to have turned in, that way it keeps you not trying to wait till the end. And rushing. You are more than welcome to ask me questions along the way on like verifying how to do something, stuff like that. You're just giving a talk, some people like to use PowerPoint, some people like to use Prezi. I have yet to see someone just say, fuck it, I'm using the board the whole way. But if you want to like write out all your information or draw it on the board, you're more than welcome to. Ideally, we're under 10 minutes for a presentation. Generally, students are around 6 to 7 minutes, 8 minutes, something like that. You're just talking about what your project was about, what your idea was, how you went out, collect data. The results of your project, stuff like that. Discuss. There's a lot, yeah, it's a little like, I don't know where to start. Start by talking to someone around you and finding out what you're both interested in.
Wanna do a first?
No, I'm not doing the project. I did my project, I just showed you one of the projects I've done right here. Later on, I will show you another project I've done.
Spark, right?
You have no idea.
It's the recuperating. Sure. I'm just like having a hard time thinking about like. Number 20, my date, my guy, we quite so we were at school. By the time. Questions.
I've seen a lot on coffee versus soda versus tea. I've seen beer versus hard alcohol. I've seen. You're not like restricted. As long as you're not going to ask something that might be about breaking the law. I think you're safe asking people whatever you want. But like, yeah, and even then, you've got some wiggle room, because it is anonymous.
She uses it, it's like science kids. Yeah, like now here's. You consider. And what?
If you find out that you're all Halloween nuts and like doing the, like handing out candy. How much money does your household spend on candy, is that? Fun question.
Zero.
What percentage of students or people go to Halloween parties rather than stay at home? There's, you know, there's just a. Whatever you might be curious about, if we can ask the question and get an answer. You can find out.
I think I'm gonna go. Get food. I know. I know the costume when I'm gonna go to Tuesday, I'm gonna have to actually back. Okay, back tomorrow.
No, it's a story. Well, that's a hard one right there. But that was just an idea of the last like.
Oh, yeah, they're just
Me personally, like.
Yeah, like.
Yes, do store this one.
Probably not, you can, you know.
Yeah. Like, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you haven't introduced yourself to each other, that's a good start. Let's say, hi, my name is. Oh, something else. Afraid I fucking just jumped out of this fucking thing.
Yeah, he doesn't trust you.
Right, you don't trust me no more. I know some people don't like group projects because like they don't wanna do all the goddamn work and there's gonna be a lazy fuck in your group, maybe. There will be anonymous like survey at the end of it. And it'll be like, did everyone contribute equally on your team to the project or approximately equally? Or was there someone that literally did nothing and it's completely anonymous and you can snitch on your teammates? And like if there's 4 people, looks like Inmar and 3 of you are all together. If all 3 of you say Inmar didn't do shit other than like pick an idea on the first day. And Inmar's like, yeah, we did a great job, it's all teamwork. I'm gonna believe you guys are Inmar, Inmar's gonna get a hell of a lot lower grade. Cause you're not, whoever's not doing the work is not getting the free ride. So, don't, and if there's dead weight and you have to do more of the project, they will be penalized. Yeah, no,
It's just like this.
if they, well, if there's only two of you, I suspect that. I don't know, but there's, it looks like most people have more than two on their team. Like if two of you say one person didn't do it and the other person says. I'm gonna believe the majority,
What's the biggest difference?
I've had five,
Like number of whole class together?
no. Cause how are they gonna give a presentation as a whole class? Yeah, I can't,
Really?
yeah,
That's
Because-
weird.
Yeah.
that is a stupid project.
That's like passion.
How are they gonna equally like participate, presenting and doing all the work?
But usually the class sizes are pretty small, I mean, like after.
Right, still. Have you ever seen 10 people give a fucking presentation?
Yes,
It's unmanageable, it doesn't look good. It's not a good presentation, this isn't fucking Broadway where they're doing a dance routine.
Have you seen, are you on TikTok?
I visited TikTok, but I don't do anything on there.
Okay, so there's this thing where a lot of the videos have like a video game playing in the background while the person is talking. Like it's a split screen, so it's like a video game, like self-paced person talking, so it like can retain your full attention. So like you don't get bored of the video to go. So it's like we can have like split.
That is not how a presentation should be. At all. That is for distraction, as a presentation, you're supposed to be presenting information for the audience to watch, and if there's too much shit going on, you can't fucking follow the presentation. TikTok is a terrible example of how to give a presentation,
Yeah,
if you're gonna use that as an example.
well, they give false information. What is it called?
It's called lying.
Well, yeah, lines, but some of them just don't like Google anything. They just say stuff off of what other creators say.
Oh, like give opinions and shit, or.
Yeah. And they go on podcasts and they talk about it. And they use big words and gestures, and then it works. It works. People believe them.
There's plenty in the media to indicate that people are gullible and stupid.
Yeah.
I've seen that presentation as well. How many of you are likely to believe false claims?
Really?
Yeah, and then they like gave a list of questions that the answers were real and what was real, what was not, what was true, what was false.
Like what? Do you remember the question?
No, I don't. They were usually news related at the time,
Yeah, when was this, like,
a couple years ago.
2020? 2019?
I wanna say 2019.
Yeah, if we did that now, it's sort of messy. Like, there's a lot of.
Yeah.
Of that.
If you guys want to go into politics or something like that, you're more than welcome to.
No, I don't wanna be attacked by people.
No one, if anyone attacks you, they're getting an F.
No, I mean, like, other people that I had, like the sample size.
So you ask questions that are, like, if you're asking politics, just leave it as what party are you voting for in the presidential election? What, like, if you're not even interested in that, if you're interested in a very specific proposition on the ballot in California. Are you voting this, and if they're not this, they just put yes or no, you know?
Yeah. So would it be, so it's like Democratic, Republican, third party not voting, so independent?
However you wanna do. I would recommend at least that much.
Wait, what?
I would recommend at least if you're gonna do a party, Democratic, Republican, independent is a good choice. You could list some of the other parties.
The third party?
Yeah, like Libertarian, Green Party, but they don't have to. It's up to you what you choose to list.
What if we just like make it category up to third party, just like under, that would be the under.
That's valid.
So
Check it out, we like it, sweet. Yeah.
so you're just like.
I did.
If you're a huge baseball fan, what percentage of people will watch the World Series? What percentage of people care? Whether you watched it or not, doesn't mean you care about the ending, because if it's not like your sports team, you're like, you might not.
No, yes, everything's great. Totally. Then I see policy. They would have it to-
Yes, what's drinks? How many
If
people
you
watch?
like baseball,
Yeah.
you can do what percentage of people watch the World Series? What percentage of people like baseball? What percentage of people you can do if you do that, and if you wanted more information, like if they like baseball, who were you rooting for? And you can just make once you have an idea of what you're gonna ask, you can make a hypothesis of what the answer is gonna be before you ask. Let's see if I can scare Alfredo again, there we go. So Bianca asked earlier, like, was I right or wrong? When I was going over the test with the teachers, she asked whether I was right or wrong. I don't want you to think about that as being the focus of your results. You are not getting graded on how well you can predict the fucking future. Okay, that's a stupid fucking idea. The idea is you're getting graded on. Do you understand the process of statistics? Formulating an idea, going out and gathering data to see if you're right or wrong. And whether you're right or wrong, presenting it as is. You don't need to change your answer. Like if you're wrong, you're wrong. Very once in a while, very rarely. Maybe less than 10% of groups will actually present an answer where they were wrong. I've seen too many groups just change their answer because they didn't want to be wrong for some. I have no idea why. Like if you're wrong, you're wrong. Like you actually learn something when you're wrong a lot sooner than you learn something when you're right. So don't have you have to be right and it's fixed in your head. Okay?
So we have to make a prediction off of like beforehand, like
Yeah.
before proving it?
Yeah,
So
that's
like,
the idea. You don't just do surveys for no reason. You have an idea of what's gonna happen.
for like fact check. Like fact check.
Effectively, kind of.
Okay.
Like,
I think of that.
I mean, I know how to change that, but I had,
are you guys really talking about diapers?
For like what you're.
Like, yeah, hold my baby here, just like.
I don't know, I feel like. Probably gonna be.
Does anyone have an idea of the topic but not sure what to ask?
Yeah, sorry.
We have a lot, but we just haven't all decided.
Yeah, I just need to go for the, for the alternative you're listening. So it could be, like. It's totally
All of the hypothesis tests are just about as simple. You collect the data, you put it in StatCrunch, it does the work for you. So run wild, you don't have to go with, there is no easiest test, really.
So you can do that, and people leave with that. Well, it's more of a should. I think it's different for every state though, but again, like, people, like, people think well, there's like, because of it's like, disproportional for people, like, people who are more than most people on every. Yeah. So there really should be a history, like, the underlying reason, but then there's other people who think that people said don't have the right to live after they do certain crises. Like have you heard the Gabriel Hernandez case where the kid lives like neglected and abused from the end. Well, his mom.
What percentage of people like sourdough?
And there's a big.
Sourdough.
And ultimately they decided. And some people think like, yeah, he deserves it, and other people think he didn't. Wait,
This is harder and it's like.
That's what I was thinking. That's why I was like, we need to get our. Tickets from the top. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, that's why I was like, should we make this simplify it? Yes or no, just like. Here's a weird result to that. No, because I want to explain something like that. Think of it, watch away. It's just, I don't know that.
Well, it wasn't that bad, like, it was a better. Like, it was like, it wasn't, like, when I say that, it's not. I saw it. And then the guy was fine, like, he didn't want any. Yeah, it's really so my car was there.
Yeah.
His car was fine.
So you didn't know.
No,
So my dad and her, they fucked up in front of their car. It didn't do anything. Like, it just did.
it was like the guy like was looking at me like, are you doing? And you see your truck, like they said, because I was like, do you have the insurance information? And then he was like, no. It's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then he was like,
Yes.
You should have like. What are you guys just thinking you were doing? If you're just asking how many people watch it, you can ask a lot. Are you interested in anything more about the Witcher series? Like because like you can like change your project once you like ask like people like questions, you're like, maybe I wanna change the project. Like, I wondered what percentage of people watch the World Series, but then it just changed to. What percentage of people watch every game, or who watch it live, or who might, if you ask more than like. Cause surveys take only seconds to fill out. So you could be like, did you watch it live, which team did you go for, if you didn't watch it. Is there a different sport you like, you can have, just. And you might find out, like, if there's a different sport you like, is it football, is it American football? And you might find out, oh, I thought a lot of people like baseball, but it turns out more people like football, and it's a big problem. So like, ask that question, keep it open for it. But. At least 50 people like should be good. I would recommend like 100. It's not, doesn't have to be each.
You can have your life.
So.
That gives you a good round number of people.
But does that have to be like actually diagnosed?
Are there?
I mean, like, it doesn't have to be diagnosed or just, it's like the doctor's gonna say that. Well, I guess, it's not like other diagnoses, it's just like. Yeah, like this patient might have. Well, yeah, they do that too, you have to bring in your prescription for it, like if you take your iron supplements for it. You should go to your doctor, just get it, it's really fast, all they do is like quick kids on.
Tell them my iron's not really.
What is it about them?
So no. My nails won't, like, no matter.
Yeah, mine are flimsy, but I don't pick that, so, but,
Yeah.
I just got my nail, so I don't think they'll go back. I don't know, maybe, but. I went in and was like, I know I have professional, like I've been taking the supplement, but I'm so tired, I'm so like, sleepy, like. And then there's like iron, people holding. I mean, like. Yeah, I think I just.
I want to report, is it a question?
You said three.
Yeah.
No, you have to have a blood transfusion if it's lower than 6.
Maybe that mentions.
Yeah, or maybe they should take it on. That's like crazy low, like you're trying.
I mean, like.
I feel like, I don't know, I don't like to do that much, but I'm like, yeah, I don't, I'm not a big. I don't know what process it, menstrual. It's like, it's like. Yeah, like if you have like, like over time. Sometimes it's like.
Yeah, no.
No.
The slides are gonna be on something that's pretty much.
People like that.
How many people are so
You said they were.
See, so you can do the. Every other day, every day.
Yeah.
Once a week. No. Yeah.
We have some guys. Yeah. See, it's around.
Yeah.
I feel like that's.